Hello, and welcome to day 5 of Psychic Body Activation. Today, we're going to go through some of the common blocks to receiving psychic information. And let's just recap on where we've been so far. I find it helpful to keep a congruency with the pattern of what we're doing. So, on day 2, we practiced grounding, which is sending our awareness down into the earth, centering, which was connecting our crown to the center of the universe or whatever you consider to be above, breathing energy into the spine and expanding the center or the central channel. So we call this grounding, centering, expanding. Grounding is also establishing boundaries. Centering is stopping the inner dialogue. Expanding is just what it sounds like. We're expanding awareness in the central channel. And as we've added on through the days, we've been using that expanding to expand awareness wherever we are working, whatever we want to focus our attention on. So that expanding piece is going to be, well, it's all going to be helpful and used again. But this expanding piece you've already seen, because in day 3, when we did the breath and energy flows, we used that practice of inhaling down with our little mini me, or taking your eyes downward into the body, expanding awareness there so you could receive information. And then exhaling, coming back up into the pineal gland or the throne, the seat of the soul, sometimes it's called, to be able to cognize, recognize, recognize what we've been experiencing in our bodies. Day 4, we did sensory awakening, and we went through some practices of sight, sound, smell, touch, and taste. And then I briefly covered the psychic senses related to those physical senses. And something that it was really fun was looking at the neocortex, the midbrain, and the neocortex, the limbic system, which I think is also called the midbrain, and then the reptilian brain, which I don't remember what that's called. Reptilian brain. Okay, I guess that's what we've been calling it. And so we're going to use those brain parts again in what we're doing today with the clearing. So I know that I said that day 5 we're going to do bodied pendulum and the truth signals, but I actually I'm in the bath right now. I got out to do this video because I was needing the clearing myself, and was like, jumped in a super salty bath, and was like, oh, you know what would be really good is focusing on these clearing practices before we get into adding more information. So with using or exercising our senses and then expanding into the psychic senses, we are expanding the amount of information that we're going to be receiving through sight, sound, smell, touch, and taste. So it's good to start from a cleaner palette, just like when you're smelling stuff and they'll give you, I think that I've heard it be called smelling salts, but places I've been, it's like coffee grounds or coffee beans. They'll have you smell that to like clear. So I think it'll be more helpful to do day 5 as clearing blocks. And I'm going to probably play you a little relaxing music with my hands. I have so many instruments in here that I'm not like in a band or like making music like that, but they're little instruments that I use by myself as a way of calming myself down and just tuning my breath with the vibration of the sounds, and it's extremely helpful. Okay, so day 5, clearing blocks. So my psychic pathway book, probably the 10th one I've had in my life since 1999, 2000, whenever I first got this book. And so the clearing blocks piece, I'm taking everything directly from here, and then I'll riff off of it with a more updated, modern, my own perspective. Updated, modern, and my own perspective. So this book was actually written in 1994. So of course, there's some things that she talks about in here where I'm like, wow, we've come a long way. So I have my notes here in my book that my friend Adina gave me. I love this book. So we're going to start with clearing the religious block. So when you were growing up, and you may still have some of this residual spiritual block, meaning that, let's just ask, what were you taught about psychic or psychics? And what kind of religious training did you have around topics that had to do with you being able to receive psychic information or using tarot cards or using a pendulum? I remember when the angel card lady, I have a book by her, Doreen Virtue. She has a really good book called Nutrition for Intuition, which I will bring that out probably in week 2 when we're getting into more of the tools. I think the body pendulum will be good in week 2. So week 1 is like we're getting ready. We're tuning our bodies. We're already on day 5, so we got 2 more days of this. And then in week 2, I'll bring more of the tools and techniques that you can use for attuning with your psychic senses. And so we'll look at Doreen Virtue's book. But I'm bringing her up because a few years ago, all of a sudden, she went rogue on her mission and went the direct opposite way and was like, this is evil, this is bad. And she goes off every day. Like, I see her, I still follow her because I also was brought up in church, in 2 different churches. So, a Roman Catholic church when I was with my grandparents, and a Southern Baptist church when I was at home with my mom and dad. So I got a nice mix of the like, woo, Southern Baptist, like that was fun. And then the Roman Catholic, where it's just very quiet and you have to keep kneeling and standing up, and there's a lot of ritual and things like that. So I enjoy a lot of religious things, different religions also. I enjoy them a lot. I actually participate in a lot of very religious structures. It's different now though because of my process of going through my religious blocks. So anything that's blocking your life force energy from fully expressing itself can be a hindrance to your development. And the reason I'm saying it can be is because for some people and at certain points in your life, the religious training is amazing. It gives you discipline, structure, a routine. Those things I value very much. If you've known me or followed anything I've been doing, I love I'm a Saturn kind of girl. So those procedures, I find them to be helpful to a point, because once it starts to be a limiting thing, then your spirit isn't able to soar, and then it becomes a hindrance. One thing that I heard was something about like keeping God locked away in a book. It's like the Bible, and God is stuck in here, and there's no freedom for God. And so we can actually do that with ourselves and with our spiritual practices when we become so rigidly stuck on Oh, you know what it's like when you go to kindergarten and you become indoctrinated into, you come in, you say this thing, you put your hand on your heart, you recite these words, you sit down, the teacher calls everybody's names. You know, there's like a routine that you do, and you come to be in that, and then you come to expect it. And then all of your education, there's this sort of pattern that you follow. And then once you leave, it's maybe that's not a good example, because I feel like that whole system is actually part of this religious block, which is like keeping you in a thing that you're stuck in. So, another example, in massage school, we learned a recipe type of massage. And I'm sure if you have any kind of trade school that you've gone to, you learned a routine or a recipe of, okay, cooking. You've learned a recipe. Your grandma maybe taught you how to roll tortillas and how to do it. But then when you get out there on out in the field, maybe you didn't have that certain ingredient grandma used to use. My grandma used to use Crisco, and I was like, mm-mm, no Crisco. So I started using butter, and my tortillas were so good. They were buttery. And that wasn't what she taught me, but I used my own intuition. I like went out into the field and was like, oh, let's try this. So whatever it is you learned in your religious training, it's like that too. Like you're able to have that pattern and then be like, oh, what about this? What if I try this? And I'm really good friends with a Catholic priest, actually. We're really good friends. We're actually in a book club together now, and he gets massages all the time. We talk about everything. And one of the things that he always tells me that he appreciates about what I do is that it's like seeing what he calls seeing Christ in everything, seeing like you're seeing Christ in the planets, and you're seeing, you know, and you're able to communicate and flow with it with respect. And yeah, so that's a possibility for this religious block. Now, she does have some questions in here that I found to be useful. Okay, here's a question. What were you taught about God? By whom? Did you believe it? Your beliefs may have evolved during the course of your life. Describe the God you believe in today, or do you? Now describe the kind of God you would like to have. Well, that's all she's got on the religious blocks. Well, she wrote a whole blurb on here. I didn't find it particularly helpful, so I'm going to leave it to you. I'm pretty sure that um, you know you've got some idea about this block. Okay, the second one, she calls it the ugly duckling block, but basically it's like being weird, being a freak, being not like everyone else. So, for instance, I had a perfectly fine career in the Navy, a husband, and two kids. I was in college. From the outside, everybody looking was like, yay, look at her. Oh, that's so awesome. And then my body was like, I was having panic attacks, and I was trembling, and I couldn't sleep, and I was having like trauma disturbed sleep where you like wake up in the middle of the night and you're like seeing images. I think I mentioned this, like seeing the characters from my dreams, like in my. So things weren't going right. They weren't going smooth. It wasn't easy. Following my intuition meant that I was like, I've got all these things. I'm going to remove them and only keep the essential things, which were my kids and my education. Everything else, I let it go. And then I'm over here doing Kundalini yoga. Like I do want to show you some of these in week 2, some of the spine exercises, because freeing up the spinal cord is really helpful for freeing and liberating your energy, which will help with the movement and being able to understand the flow of energy. It'll be more palpable for you. So the ugly duckling block can be like, I don't want to be weird. I don't want to go against what everybody else is expecting of me. And then suddenly I'm over here wearing a sarong, going to India to study yoga, using tarot cards, chanting some weird stuff. You know what I mean? You don't want to be that weirdo. So that can actually be a block to you fully realizing your full human potential. So let's see if she has any questions for us about that. Ugly duckling blocks. Okay. Please list three people you knew better. Okay. So three people you knew better than to trust them, but you trusted them anyway. Now she says, please list three times you knew something and you didn't trust your own intuition. Mmm, got a lot of these. Please list three times you distrusted your own intuition and trusted someone else instead. And then this last one. Please list three people you knew you couldn't trust and you were right. Okay. Now, the next one, I really like this because it still happens to me sometimes. The intellectual block. So I've had times where the one that stands out the most is I was working with this woman from Haiti, and I had my hands on her back of her head and in her on her sacrum through the sheets, through the linens. I wasn't like touching her skin or anything. It's the way I do my energy work. And I was like seeing bananas, like literal a bunch of bananas. And I was like, no, what the hell? What am I even going to say? Like, do you eat bananas? Do you like bananas? I'm seeing bananas. And so it's just one example. I'm not going to tell you how that whole session went, but the intellectual block is basically where you're like, that is not rational. That does not make sense. I'm not going to say that. Or, yeah, I mean, a lot of this stuff in our extra senses defies the laws of physics. And so it, a lot of times, most of the time, is not going to be rational and it might not make sense to you at the moment. And over time, if you're paying attention and following it, eventually it probably will make sense. And if you're reading for somebody else in any type of fashion, I've had this happen so many times that they'll come back later and be like, that was right, that was on point, or that was really helpful, or something like that. So, getting over the intellectual block, I don't know if it will ever happen for me because I'm always questioning that. Like I'm always like, I'll go with it now because there's a level of having an intellectual block when you're questioning it and you won't let yourself go with it, like me with the bananas. I was like, I am not talking to this woman about bananas. So here's some questions for the intellectual block. She says, for all you rational beings, get over it. And then she has these questions, which I love. Fill in the blanks with some coincidence. She says, coincidence you've experienced. It was probably just a coincidence, but so what? Fill in the blank. It was probably just luck, but I'm sure it was just my imagination, but I've never had a psychic experience, but that gives me chills because so many people, I feel like people who are drawn to me, you, since you're watching this video, are psychic, that you have a gift. And so you're connected with me and you sense my psychicness or my intuition or my sensitivity. And we are connected with that. And so there is, you are also sensitive. You also have gifts of being able to expand into your psychic senses. So, this one, I've never had a psychic experience, but there was that one time I had a dream about XYZ, and then, you know, yeah, she says that. I had a weird dream that blank, and then blank. Okay, so you get the point. Let's move on. The intellectual block. Now, the disorganization block. I really love this one because this goes back to, what was that day? I think on day 3, we talked about this, where as you're going to sit for your 20 to 30 minutes practice, you're breathing your energy down into the earth, breathing your energy up into the sky, you're cycling that sky and earth energy in your body, expanding your central channel. You're noticing in your space what is grabbing your body's attention. So you're like, what is my body aware of that my conscious mind is not fully aware of? Oh, there's that weird little buzz. Remember I said that? That was because I did hear a little buzz. I actually called an electrician because guess what? That little buzz had been taking up a little gigabyte of attention in my body. And so I took action on it because I'm not going to tell you to take action if I'm not going to take action. And this is why I'm here doing this with you, because this is information that I need right now to strengthen my psychic abilities, because the rest of 2025 we have a lot that we're going to be facing, that we are going to need to trust our bodies to fortify our psychic abilities and trust in ourselves and be able to connect our attention with the cosmos and to be able to connect our attention with the earth. And I'm going to show you a few other techniques for clearing our field today, actually. So, all right, so the disorganization block, what has your body's attention? Is the closet cluttery? My closet is not cluttery. This is a constant thing I'm organizing. So my bookshelf, as you can see, it's very nice. Look around your space, and you can even just close your eyes and ask, what has my attention? My car, my this, my that. Just scan through and go through and see if anything pops out. And then you're going to go and attend to it the best you can. This is not like top priority. Unless it is, like I said about the electricity in our house, it actually turned out to be a big issue. The electrician came in and was like, you could have a fire in here because the electrical circuit is like surging in some places and not going at all to other places. So he was in here for about 2 hours fixing the electricity in my house. So maybe it is a top priority to ask your body, what has your attention right now that I am not consciously aware of? Write it down and see if you can do something about it. Okay, that's the disorganization block. This one is the number 5, the 5th block, living at your own pace. So, what comes up in my mind is you're rushing off to work. I'm just going to give you my previous life when I was still in the Navy and I had 2 kids. I woke up 4:30 a.m., went to do my workout, came home, showered, got the kids ready, got them off to school, went to work. I was at work for 8 hours or so. It was just all over the place. It was very fast. I was very skinny and I drank coffee so I could continue doing a lot of stupid things really fast. Just kidding. I wasn't doing stupid things, but doing a lot of things fast. This pace was not appropriate for me. It actually led to a lot of problems and a lot of pain in my body and a lot of dysfunction. So for me, it was slowing down my pace. And gradually, I've been able to manage my work with my relaxation and tending to my physical strength and my physical relaxation and pleasure to putting pleasurable activities into my schedule and treating them just as important as I would going to see a client. It's on my schedule. So that's the fifth. Now, the sixth is putting on earmuffs because psychic information is information. And what is very common, especially in 2025, where we are today, we are constantly looking at media. We're reading the news. We're hearing what somebody else thinks about the news. We're going down the rabbit holes of all these different things. And there's a lot of information coming in. And then, if you do get a chance to sit down and talk with a friend, it's very common for a friend to also tell you stuff rather than extracting things. I think in Latin, the word for education is like educare, which means to draw out what is within. So to draw out, and this is something that it's a constant learning for anybody who's in a helping, healing profession, that we're able to listen to what the person is saying and ask questions that help that person to draw out what is within them rather than to add more to what's already busy. It's already a lot. And a lot of our well-meaning friends and family will do that. Naturally, they want to help, and it's beautiful. It's so beautiful. It's like whenever a woman's in labor and everyone's like, push, do this, do that. Oh, when I was pregnant and this thing helped. And just like, no, stop. Because I have this whole beautiful vessel of water that is fully capable of instructing me on what I need at the time that I need it. And I trust my body to know what to do. So, like that, sometimes while it's good to talk about what you're experiencing, well-meaning people will add to the noise. So, what she has here is putting on earmuffs. Putting on earmuffs is basically as just as it sounds, to block out the extra noise so you can actually listen to the wisdom of your body. Okay, so let's do. Oh gosh, there was something that came up in my mind today that was associated with neocortex, the limbic system, and the reptilian brain. And that was, hold on, let me. Okay, that was the subconscious storehouse. So we want to, maybe not right now, but just to keep this in mind as we're going through these layers of where information is coming from. I think I talked about this on day one. Day one was like, what is psychic? What does that mean? Where is it coming from? Where is this information coming from? And we identified that the neocortex was like the super consciousness, which was like when you get an insight that seems that you were like, don't know where that came from. And it was like, okay, my friend today on the phone, she's an Ifa priestess, crowned Yamaya, and she was like, listen to me, you are listening to your ancestors and you're listening to your dreams. These would be dreams coming from the unconscious, which is more of a, the unconscious would be more of a instinctual reptilian part of the brain. And yes, that's true. And then you're listening to your ancestors, which is also an instinctual part of the brain. And what you're not really paying attention to is what's coming from above, which is like this might not be something that you already know. So, with our instincts and with our ancestors, it's like familial. It is a pattern within us that we can tap into those. And this I am extremely comfortable with. And so the part of the brain that is connecting to the super consciousness, it will be things that are, I'm in my book, I wrote about this as the North Node. So the North Node is the future, and it is not yet known. It would be like in the triad of ancestors, us now, and then our future generations. The super conscious would be like the North Node, would be like the future generation. So it's like, are you able to talk to your future children or your future grandchildren? Are you able to connect with them? And then, or no, scratch that. Because that connection, anytime you hear connection, like to a familial line, this is going to be, when I was rubbing here, this is going to be more of a telepathic connections are going to be more of that limbic system. When we're talking about connection, think limbic system. The super consciousness, I am, like my friend said, this is not a strong point for me. So that is going to be the um, a higher plane of assistance. This is angels. This is ascended masters. This might also be planets. So maybe I'm not so bad with connecting with that layer of consciousness, but yeah. So that's a place for me to explore. Which place are you exploring right now? Are you exploring your instinctual subconscious information, which often is going to be coming out in your dreams? It's going to be coming out in unconscious ways. So there's like patterns in our life that are can be repeating patterns that is part of our subconscious constantly communicating with us through things that you say repeatedly, things that you think repeatedly. One of my Tantra yoga teachers said this phrase once: if you think a thought more than once, write it down and do something about it or let it go. There's no need to have that continually, like that thought continually coming up. I can think of an example. I A repeating question that I might ask myself is like, am I doing good as a mom? Am I doing good as a mom? That has been, I could cry right now thinking about it because I don't know. And if any little thing shows me that I could possibly not be doing good as a mom, oh my God. So if I were taking that as an example, I would write the question down, am I doing good as a mom? And I would work that. What is your baseline? What proof do you have? What are some examples that you are? What are some examples that you're not? What can you do about this? Do the things you can do something about them and throw the rest away. Is anybody a good mom? In at what time for who? Because I can be a good mom for my daughter who has certain things that, you know, I could be the same exact mom to her and it's not good for my son. You know what I mean? It's like that was a hard one. So think of a thing, you can think of something that is a repeating pattern, write it down, and then do something with that or throw it away. So that's the unconscious. That's going to be that level of your instinctual brain. Your telepathic connections. Your limbic system, those intuitions that are based on the senses, like you smell a thing. Um, the limbic system there's so much more in the neuroscience of how the limbic system is closely, it is, it's not closely, it is where our senses come from. And it is closely tied to the psychic senses. And then, yeah, so see where you are with those parts of your brain co-respondences with parts of your psychic abilities. And just see, we're not doing anything. There's nothing to do. It's just, we're just finding out right now in week one. Okay, so I think that is enough of that. Now let's go ahead and I'm going to play some of these chimes for you. And I'll just cut the video off after I get done playing the chimes. I'm going to get back in my clearing bath with 3 pounds of Epsom salt. And you can just stay sitting for however long you want to and do your practice if that feels appropriate after hearing the chimes. So go ahead and get comfortable. You can lay down. Well, I don't know how long I'll play them for. Let's see how it goes. But go ahead and get comfortable. You can be seated, you can lie down, whatever feels most appropriate for you at this time.